and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris, and you're watching The Future is Female. This is the show where we find the extraordinary in every woman. Now, my guest on the show tonight is a palliative care doctor at Kasih Hospice Foundation. Dr. Siti Munirah Ibrahim works tirelessly to support end-of-life patients, providing them with comfort, quality of life, and a good death. Dr. Munirah, thank you so much for joining us on the show tonight. Welcome. It's so good of you to join us tonight.
Now, thank you, Melisa. Assalamualaikum and good evening. It's lovely to be with you.
Walaikum salam. Now, I know you wear many hats, like many other working women, working mothers. You wear many hats, and I'm sure we're going to be discussing some of those hats a little bit later in the show. But if I may begin with the one that you wear as a palliative care doctor for Kasih Hospice Foundation. And I'm just wondering how you came to focus on palliative medicine and end-of-life care. I mean, what makes you passionate about this field? Was it a calling for you?
Thank you, Melisa. Well, I basically fell in love with hospice and palliative care when I was doing my GP specialist training in the UK. I had a 6-month rotation at Rotherham Hospice, and the rest is basically history. It gave me that special passion that I had long been looking for in the field of medicine. It just immediately fit in with me and my personality. I love spending time with my patients and knowing them in and out, including their families. And I realized that it's not just about a person's illness, but much more holistic sense of well-being. Now, not everyone likes palliative and end-of-life care, but for me, it's an honorable and humbling experience to be able to help and support somebody at this very special stage in their lives. So when I returned to Malaysia in August 2019, after completing my specialist training, I knew it was something that I really wanted to continue doing, and I'm most honored to be part of the Kasih Hospice Foundation team.
Right. Well, you say not everyone likes, working or being part of that field of palliative care, end-of-life care. And I'm just wondering what that means, because to me, it feels like you need to have not just very high skills in terms of medical care, but also the emotional fortitude to be able to provide your patients with a good death. And how is that what it's like to work in this field?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a different challenge than your normal sort of clinic or hospital medicine. We, in palliative care and in hospice care, we focus about the person's life, not just about their death. And we focus on giving meaning to that life, give them a quality of life, of the life that they have left with their loved ones, addressing deeper issues such as spirituality and meaning of life. And of course, it's also about death and dying. And these are difficult topics to discuss. But what we do is discuss with our patients and their families at suitable times so that it becomes something that they are prepared for. And even, when we say about a good death, that when it happens, it happens in the best way possible. So it's definitely not something that you talk about to anyone. And there are difficult conversations. But for us in hospice and palliative care, it's part of our bread and butter.
Yeah, I think I'm interested in this because I think there's not a lot of awareness around this topic. So that was something I was hoping we could talk about tonight. But I want to learn more about the work that's being done by palliative care providers like Kasih Hospice Foundation. I was reading some statistics by the Department of Statistics, and then they talked about how Malaysia is going to be an aged nation over the next decade. That means, I think, more than 15% of the total population will be 60 and above. So that means that there's going to be a far more pressing need for palliative care going into the future. And, the burden, the pressure put on palliative care providers like Kasih Hospice. Tell us a little bit about the work that you do with Kasih Hospice. Who do you serve? What do you stand for?
Thank you, Melisa. So definitely palliative care is one of those specialties that I think is fairly new in Malaysia. So in Kasih Hospice Foundation, we provide service to everyone. So anyone that is referred to us, regardless of race, religion, nationality. And we cover areas from PJ, parts of Shah Alam, all Sungai Buloh, all the way up to Rawang and Bukit Beruntung, and also Kepung and Selayang. So it's quite a large area.
Wow.
And we do home visits for outpatients. We don't have any inpatient beds. We actually, run on home visits. And we focus on patients with time and life-limiting illnesses. We focus on preventing and relieving suffering from symptoms such as pain, breathing difficulties, nausea and vomiting. But we also attend to the person's psychosocial well-being and helping to resolve deeper issues, like I mentioned before, such as spirituality and meaning of life. We place huge importance in communicating with families who often find that the support that we give from hospice are really invaluable as they go through difficult and challenging moments of caring for their loved ones. And ultimately, we want our patients to be comfortable and content, focusing on the time that they have left with their families. And when the time comes, they die a comfortable and good death. So at Kasih, we consist of 3 doctors, 6 nurses, and 2 more in training. And we're overseen by directors and supported by a dedicated admin team. And we want people to know about us, and we want to serve more. And our motto is with compassion, we care.
That sounds like a very small team serving a very wide area, and I'm sure that's a large segment of the population within the Klang Valley, the Greater Klang Valley that you're serving. Is that a challenge with palliative care? I mean, is that just there's not enough doctors within this specialty, or not enough providers or hospices? How what's the landscape like?
Yes, no. So in Malaysia, each state has at least one institution that provides hospice and palliative care, but Klang Valley has more. Now, because palliative care or community palliative care or hospice care specifically is not yet funded by the Malaysian government, we are all charity NGOs running on funds, and we provide free service to everyone. So it really breaks our hearts when somebody, is referred from an area far away that we don't cover and no hospice covers, and we think, oh my goodness, this person will suffer with symptoms, will die in, maybe suffering with pain and all sorts of symptoms, and the family will have no support. So we really try our best to cater within what we can, and we want to do more. So the more we have, the more we will give.
Right, and then you said that you went to, you go house to house, so you don't have kind of inpatient care. You go and you provide house visits. I'm just wondering what this pandemic has done to the nature of your work, what the lockdowns, the MCOs have done. Has that prohibited you in, carrying out the services that you do?
Yes, well, because we function mainly on home visits, obviously we have to be very careful during the pandemic that we're not being, the reason for spreading illness. But definitely we are still there for our patients. We are definitely still going to their homes. We are caring for them, helping them with difficult symptoms, and definitely, especially so at the end of life, so that we keep them comfortable. And with the pandemic, as the pandemic goes on, our hospitals are becoming more stretched with both COVID and non-COVID patients. And because of this, our patients and their families are more concerned about going to hospital and even dying in hospital because their families can't be with them. So more and more patients are choosing to die at home. Their families want to be at home where they can be with their loved ones. They can, have their prayers and everything. And so for us, that's what's important. We want what is best for our patients and their families. And so we are still going home to home and providing the best we can, utilizing precautionary measures to try and be safe. But definitely we want our patients to be comfortable as much as possible.
Right. Dr. Munirah, can I come back to something you said? Because you said that, the topic of talking about death and dying is often difficult. There are, societal, cultural taboos around talking about death and dying. And I'm just wondering whether you can help address what I think is a very commonly held misconception, that discussing palliative care options, that's tantamount to kind of giving up or no longer fighting for living. And I'm just wondering how we can help change that narrative, that conversation, that palliative care or seeking palliative care options, even from your primary physician, that is something that perhaps needs to be done not so late in a patient's life.
Absolutely. So this is the perception that we want to try and change, that palliative care is not just about that dying moment. It's actually, we see patients long before they actually reach that moment. And all our patients and their families realize that what palliative care brings is meaning to their life. The fears, the difficulties that they go through can all be addressed, most of them at least, with medications in terms of symptoms, but also with discussion, fears of dying, fears of leaving loved ones behind, fears of an illness that, is can be so nasty, and fears of meaning of life. Why am I here? Why am I going? How can I go in the best way? And these are things that we really place our focus on. So a lot of our skills and conversations are around these very difficult topics, which definitely need, a lot of training, and it definitely needs to come from the heart. So what we give, definitely is from our heart to our patient's heart, and this is the invaluable service that hospice and palliative care give. And we want our patients to come to us early so that we can help them to achieve this before that time to the end comes. And even when it is talking about the end, we want to discuss it early so that we know how our patients want to die, where they want to die, and what things they want to settle before they die, and in that way they can go in peace.
Yeah, that sounds like emotional skills also need to be there, bedside manner and all that. Can I ask you, it's not just the patients, right, Dr. Munirah? There's families to take into consideration when you're providing palliative care. What kind of support do families of those in hospice need?
Yes. So at Kasih Hospice, we provide several things for our patients and their families. One is obviously our medical care through our doctors and nurses, and we review them regularly. We do home visits, and we also provide essential medications. But also we also have our equipment, so things like hospital beds, oxygen concentrators, whatever is donated to us, we tend to use again to help our patients. And but what our patients and their families find most important or most needed and invaluable is what I mentioned before, that special support, the compassion, the acknowledgement that they're going through something so difficult, the ability to break down and share this difficulty with us, to know that we are there 24/7 on a phone call any time of day, to be able to pick up the phone and say, my loved one is going through this, through pain, what do I do? Anything, and we are there for them. So this is what we find most of our families find, that particular support is helpful alongside the medical and the equipment as well. So we definitely really value the support that's given to any hospice, including our own at Kasih Hospice Foundation. And in fact, this weekend we are running a course on Live Well seminar, and tomorrow I'm talking about advanced care planning, where we plan for death and dying for everyone, and we're doing a workshop tomorrow. And we also we're having a run later on this year for people to support us in our cause. So lots of things to support us with, and to support our patients and families most importantly.
You sound like you have your hands full, and I'm surprised because you still wear many other hats, and we're going to be talking about some of those hats you wear, some of the work that you do with civil society. We're going to take a quick break. Dr. Munirah will come back and talk a little more about those efforts. So stay tuned to The Future is Female. We will be right back. Hi, welcome back to The Future is Female. I'm Melisa Idris, and I'm chatting tonight to palliative care doctor, Dr. Siti Noor Munirah Ibrahim. Dr. Munirah, now on top of all the things that you're telling us about just before the break, all the things that keep your days busy, you're a working mother, you've got 4 amazing children. You're also actively involved in civil society work, and I understand you're a member of Pertubuhan IKRAM Malaysia and also coordinator with Projek Wawasan, Rakyat. I know you're passionate about this, about building a more inclusive, a more united Malaysia. I want to know more about the work that you've been doing in this area. Tell us more.
Thank you, Melisa. Well, I've always been a huge believer that as Malaysians, we have this unique, multiracial and multi-faith diversity that can live in peace and harmony with mutual respect and love for one another. And having lived abroad in the UK for 17 years of my life, back and forth, I only grow to appreciate this further of Malaysia and Malaysians. And this is how everyone outside of Malaysia actually views us as well. And I realized that we are very much deep-rooted in our faiths. We have appreciation of our own cultures. And these are two things that are actually not as well rooted in the Western world in this day and age. So since I returned to Malaysia, I specifically wanted to be part of any unity effort, and joining Projek Wawasan Rakyat, or Power, alongside Nathaniel Tan and Faisal Aziz, among other individuals and organizations, has really given me hope that there are so many good Malaysians among us. In Power, there are numerous NGOs and individuals that are doing amazing, dedicated and passionate work on the ground, bringing change from the grassroots upwards. And it really humbles me to be among such sincere and hardworking people who really want the best for Malaysia and Malaysians.
Oh, that's amazing. I do know the good work that Nat Tan and Faisal with Abim does. So I want to talk to you about that perception about Malaysia. You talked about, participating in these unity efforts. I'm just wondering, because, our multicultural identity, that's always been something we're very proud of. It's something that we kind of highlight, especially to the outside world. But I'm sure there are many Malaysians watching tonight who fear that there's been a slide towards division, towards ethno-chauvinism, towards, sometimes I would even call it outright bigotry, especially, by those who want to exploit ethnic differences for electoral gain. I'm wondering, Munirah, where you think we can rebuild any trust that has been lost. I mean, particularly when we think about resetting to a default culture of goodwill. You know what I mean? To rediscover what I would say
Absolutely.
is our collective sense of sincerity. Where can we start?
Thank you. Now, I agree with you, Melisa. This is definitely a huge area of concern. I truly believe that we have so much more in common than that what divides us. So if we actually all focus on what we all want, to be able to work and earn a living, for our children to go to school and receive an education, to be free from COVID, to have neighbors we can rely on, to have clean and peaceful neighborhoods, to be able to practice our religion in peace, to have good healthcare facilities, to be free of crime and danger, and to be happy and content with our lives. The list goes on and on. There's so many things that we want in common. So when we focus on these things and work together to achieve them, we can really, truly achieve great wonders. But if we decide to pick on our differences, on our race, on our faith, we're definitely going to have stark differences, because that's the nature. And then the problem is when people use them to create fear in others, this is when the danger starts. When people are in fear, the first thing they do is protect and defend themselves, when in fact what is being done is only an illusion of fear. So how do we combat this? Firstly, we have to know that this strategy is being misused by certain people or groups to gain support. Secondly, be grounded in our own identity. When we are sure of our faith, of our origins, we won't be so easily steered by negative influences. And it doesn't mean that when we open up to others, that it definitely has to attack ours. And thirdly, remember that we are a truly peace-loving nation. And even in our diversity, this is what will unite us once again. And I really, really believe that.
Can I talk to you about that, Munirah, about kind of the fear in others? There are some people who view Islamic NGOs like IKRAM, like you mentioned, Abim a little bit earlier, with some kind of apprehension or suspicion. And this comes, of course, against a backdrop of decades of politicians and political parties using religion for their own gain. I'm just wondering how NGOs like IKRAM engage with those who hold different views, hold different values.
Well, actually, Melisa, it comes back to knowing one another, really. I mean, in IKRAM, we are always actually open to dialogue and discussion with people who hold different views and values from us. We love to involve in peaceful and respectful engagement, because we truly believe that it's important to seek to understand before being understood. We also believe that our religion in Islam teaches us to do this, as mentioned in the Quran and also as taught by Prophet Muhammad, that Allah created us as men and women, nations and tribes, so that we can know one another. And we usually find that when we engage with others, even though we have different opinions, which we can agree to disagree on, people then are more comfortable to listen to us and understand our point of views too. So it definitely works both ways.
Right. There's been a lot of efforts from the government to provide or to facilitate social cohesion. I'm just wondering whether that is something that can be commanded by a government. And is this something that is top down, or does it grow organically from the bottom?
I think it's definitely both ways, Melissa. Like I said, for instance, in organizations like Power and even within IKRAM, we are a grassroots organization that work from bottom up. But it definitely needs a top-down approach as well. We need people to show us good examples from the top. We need people to be saying what I'm saying today, for us to actually live in peace and harmony with one another, respect and, mutually understand one another. And therefore, all our policies can be surrounding creating unity on what we all want. And it's really important top down as well. So I definitely believe it's both ways, Melissa.
Can I ask you, Munirah? I mean, I know you love being a mother. That's very important to you. You're raising 4 amazing children. What can we leave our next generation? How do we better equip them to be Malaysians who embrace similarities that you talk about, and also to embrace the differences in races, not to just dismiss them, but to embrace and understand all the differences that make up a multicultural society?
Yes, no, I love my children as any mother would love theirs. And I really believe that, the change has to start from within ourselves and by educating the next generation. So first of all, we teach everyone to know about one another, to know that we are all, of different races or different religions, and to be also grounded in our own. So when we realize there's actually nothing to fear, there's lots to learn from other people and lots to even love about other people, then, that is where this will naturally come. The second I would say is work together. When we work together, for instance, in Kasih, very much a multiracial and multi-faith organization, we realize that we have similar aims, goals, and dreams, and that when we work together to achieve them, we can fly in leaps and bounds. And thirdly, we need to know that Malaysia is truly a great nation of many races and faiths, and this is what makes Malaysia and Malaysians great. So actually, if we all examine our own faiths, we will realize that in our faith that we all teach. It all teaches mutual respect and love for one another. We can agree to disagree about fundamental issues of our faiths and differences, but that doesn't mean that we can't love one another, respect other people. And that's definitely what we need to be teaching ourselves, our friends, our families, and most definitely our children.
How do we, and just to delve a little deeper in that, because, sometimes children find themselves not through no fault of their own in kind of homogenous settings, in single culture, everyone looks like them, one ethnic composition. How do we ensure that they're exposed to different cultures, learning about about being good neighbors, about who lives next door and within the community, and embracing the neighbors, metaphorically, not physically.
No, thanks, Melissa. I mean, to be honest, in this pandemic, it's really challenging. They don't meet anybody, they don't even go to school. Right. So yeah, it's tricky, but definitely, I think we need to consciously think about these efforts, talking about it, engaging in discussion with our own children about, sometimes they ask me, about people of, they mention, they talk about maybe somebody's skin color, or maybe, that person looks different. And it's like, it's okay, but to discuss with them that, like for instance, from an Islamic point of view, I tell them Allah made us all different. So this person is of this race, this person is of this faith. But what we really look at is the goodness in the heart, how we treat other people, not how they look. And it's really these values that are, fundamental to creating good human beings in general. So it's about exposing them, thinking consciously about in inculcating the values that we want to see in our society. And I believe that, if we do that with our children, we can change the next generation onwards, and even our own generation.
Right. And that encourages me that, you're working so much on this and trying to build, a better country, and actively participating in unity efforts. And I'm just wondering, if we want to learn more about it, what do we do? Where do we go? If we want to understand a little bit more about how we can contribute to making, a more cohesive society, where should we go for more information?
Oh, well, there's lots depending on what you're looking for and where you're looking for it. But for instance, if with Project Wawasan Rakyat, we are on Facebook. We're working towards something called Bangsa Malaysia. And as part of my own efforts with another team, we're going to start a new platform next week called Ubah. So watch out for us on Saturday, 9:30 p.m. And we want this to be a platform where we can discuss ideas, change our mindsets, and actually create change. Hence the name Ubah. So that's another place where you can check us out, where we're hoping to, is another effort on the ground that we're hoping that can create change as well.
Ubah. Okay, all right. I like that because I think things need to change. Dr. Munirah, thank you so much for speaking with me today. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you tonight, and thank you so much for your service. Appreciate your work that you do.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Melisa. Lovely to meet you tonight.
All right, that's all we have for you on this episode of The Future is Female. I will be back with you same time next week with another edition. Thanks for watching the show and have a great week ahead. In fact, my colleagues Ibrahim Sani and Hafiz Marzuki will be coming up next. They'll be bringing you all the latest on what to expect for the coming week. That's just after the break, so make sure you stay tuned. I'm Melisa Idris signing off for this evening. Good night, folks.